We're live. It only took us 2 or 3 tries. So what's up, everybody? My name is Ben from WODprep, and in this video I'm doing a special live YouTube video to talk about my best Murph tips. So if we're attacking the hero workout Murph within the next few days, I know most of us are going to be doing it on this following Monday. Regardless of when you're tackling it, this is going to be a very good video to check out, because I'm going to talk about things like scaling and how to scale Murph properly, because a lot of people should scale this workout in some way, shape, or form, and I'll tell you a bunch of different ways that you can do it and still have a great workout and honor those who have fallen, specifically Murph and other heroes who have fallen in battle. That's why we have Memorial Day. And then next I'm going to talk about some pacing, some strategy, some transitions. Obviously everyone always wants to know what gear that I use, so I'm going to talk about, really, there's a couple pieces of equipment that I use for this workout. And then I'm going to issue a warning. The warning is very, very important, because a lot of people are going to get hurt doing Murph because they won't listen to this warning. So we'll talk about that. And as this video goes along, if anyone actually joins the live stream, I have no idea how live streaming works. If anyone joins and has comments, my wonderful videographer here holding the camera is going to hopefully read out those questions and I can answer them live. So if you have questions as I go, feel free to spit them out and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them on the live, I'll make sure to come back in and actually respond in the commentary. So let's dig into it, shall we? So Murph, hero workout Murph. As a quick review, let's just write it on the whiteboard. So hero workout Murph is a 1 mile run, and then we have 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, 1 mile run. And you're all supposed to do this with a weight vest. So this is Murph as RX'd, okay? And it's dedicated to hero Murph, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, who died in battle protecting his fellow soldiers. So you're supposed to wear this with body armor, with a weight vest. So it's about a 20-pound weight vest. And the way that it was written originally on the CrossFit.com HQ website was you could partition the reps as needed. So 1 mile run, break up the reps however you want, 1 mile run. That is actually how it is written RX. So for all of the do Murph, that is actually fundamentally wrong, because the original workout was written to partition these reps in the middle as needed. However, it's since been modified, and when they programmed it at the CrossFit Games many moons ago, they have forced the athletes to do it straight through unpartitioned. So unpartitioned, I'll be throwing that word around a lot. Unpartitioned is when you literally do all of the work in order from top down. So that means you can't do any push-ups until you've completed all 100 pull-ups, and then you can't do your squats until you've completed 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups. So unpartitioned is straight down, straight through. And then what a lot of people do is a partition Murph. So that would look something like this. You have the 1 mile run, and then for this section of work, you're going to do something like 20 rounds of Cindy, which would be 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, and then 15 squat. Okay? So that is a very common way that a lot of people do it, is they just Cindy it, and technically that's one way to partition it. You could partition this to maybe 5 rounds. You could do whatever these are divided by 5. I don't want to do the math, but basically 5 rounds of 20 push-ups and whatever 20 pull-ups, whatever push-ups, whatever squats. So you can do as many rounds as you want to get to that, and we're going to talk a little bit more when I talk about scaling of some of the suggested sets that I recommend here at WODprep. So that being said, we know what the Murph is. We know that technically RX, you're allowed to partition the reps. Some people only count it if you go straight through unpartitioned. With all that aside, let's talk about how I suggest doing and breaking up Murph. So the first thing we need to talk about is scaling. Before I flip the whiteboard over, unless you are a very fit athlete, it is highly suggested to scale Murph. And the reason is because if we're not used to running with weight on our backs, if we're not used to running with a 20-pound weight vest, if we're not used to doing weighted pull-ups and all these things with added weight and lots of running for a CrossFitter, then it is very easy to have Murph wreck your body, meaning it's going to wreck you and you're going to have an hour-plus workout, which most of us aren't used to. But it can also, we got a question? All right, we'll answer the question in a second. It can also physically mess up your body. And that's really the warning that I'm going to talk about at the end. But if you are not prepared to do Murph and then you just come out of the gate and do it RX and you just try your little heart out for an hour-ish, maybe more, and go really hard and you have other people around you pushing you, you're pushing, you're moving, you're going as hard as you can, it is extremely easy. Unfortunately, it is extremely easy to get rhabdomyolysis, which is essentially, it's very bad, that's all I'll say. Rhabdo is very bad because your muscles are essentially exploding, it can cause liver and kidney damage, it's not what you want. So please be willing to, like, the only hero in this workout is Murph and the people who have fallen for their countries in battle. Okay, that's what Memorial Day is about. You are not the hero in this workout, which means you don't have to put your ego on the table and say, I'm only doing Murph RX because I'm hardcore. That's not what we want here, because if you end up in the hospital or you end up with a severe case of DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, you're going to be wishing that you scaled down and left your ego at the door. So leave your ego at the door. Let's talk about some really smart scaling options. What's that question?
What do you recommend for a beginner?
All right. Perfect. That's what we're going to talk about.
From Petrit.
Thank you. All right. So when it comes to scaling, don't read any of this yet, even though I know you're reading all of it right now. There's three main ways that I want to scale. One, we have reps. You can scale the amount of reps. ROM, which is scaling the movement, so scaling the range of motion or scaling the actual movement itself. And then we have rep schemes. So we're going to go through all three of those. When it comes to a beginner, here are a couple really good suggestions. So when it comes to reps, a beginner that can do pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats, maybe you're someone who's like, maybe I could do Murph, but I don't know, it seems like a lot. A great way to scale Murph is to scale the reps down and do a half Murph. So a half Murph would simply be a half-mile run, 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 150 air squats, and then another half-mile run. Again, you could partition this part as necessary into these rep schemes that we'll talk about in a second. But you can first think about if you can do the movements required as prescribed, so you can do pull-ups, you can do push-ups, you can do air squats, then a great way to scale Murph is to simply tone down the reps. So don't do all the reps, instead tone down the reps, but keep the actual movements. That is one of my favorite ways to scale Murph. So a half Murph is a great option. You could even do a quarter Murph. So what would a quarter Murph look like? Well, that would be a quarter-mile run, and it'd be 25 pull-ups. It'd be 50 push-ups. It would be 100 and something air squats. I should have done all the math beforehand because I can't do it when I'm live. But basically, you take the full Murph, rather than divide it in half, you divide it into quarters. So you do a quarter of it. This is just one example. You could do a three-quarter Murph. You could do a full Murph. You could do half Murph, quarter Murph, so on and so forth. Another great way is to do a partner Murph. So let's say you're a beginner and you have someone else that you're buddies with, or you want to make a new friend on Memorial Day. Do a partner Murph. It's a great way to scale down the speed at which you're accumulating reps, which is going to make you less sore. It's going to beat your body up less. So you could do a full Murph, but you share the load with a partner. Maybe you do the mile run together, and then you're breaking up the 100 pull-ups, the 200 push-ups, 300 air squats. You divide it in half between you and a partner. It's you go, I go. That's a great way to do Murph. Or you could say one person does the first mile, one person does the second mile. It's your choice, but there's a lot of really smart, creative ways that we can do Murph and honor Memorial Day without having to go fully RX'd unpartitioned. Okay? So this is a great option for beginners. Now, if you're even more of a beginner and you can't, let's say you can't do true pull-ups yet, you can't do the push-ups yet, the running is hard, there's a ton of great ways we can scale. The ROM, that means we're scaling the range of motion. So this could be, rather than doing RX pull-ups, you're doing something like jumping pull-ups, or you're doing something like ring rows or banded pull-ups. I'll just show you over here in the pull-up bar, right? You can just do a couple jumping pull-ups. So find a pull-up bar that you can actually grab with your hands from standing. This one's a little tall, but you can literally jump up, pull, drop down. That's 1. 2, this is a great modification. If you can't do the fully RX, unbroken pull-ups, kipping pull-ups are allowed, obviously. But if you can't do those pull-ups, then scale it down a little bit. You could also do ring rows. My rings are over there. I won't bother setting them up. But set up ring rows so that you're hanging from the rings, laying backwards, and rowing horizontally. It's a great scaled version. Or you could take a band, throw it over the pull-up bar, step into the band, and do banded pull-ups. It's a little awkward getting in and out of that, so it's going to waste a lot of time. But those are all very valid options. Same thing when it comes to the push-ups, right? We can do push-ups scaled. You can do them from your knees. You can do them to a reduced range of motion. So let's say I could literally take, let's see, I'm just doing this live. I could take a plate and put a pad over top of it. And now if I do my push-ups here, right, I've reduced my range of motion, okay? So rather than going chest to the deck, now I'm only doing a half pull-up or a half push-up. I could build this up as high as I wanted to. So you're still doing that planked push-up, you're just doing it to a reduced range of motion. That's a great way to scale. There's a lot of creative ways that we can modify Murph to get a great stimulus. Maybe if squatting is tough for you, you could squat to a box or take a wall ball, put it under your butt, so you're just squatting to that every time. That's a little bit easier than doing just full-blown squats. So that's how we would scale range of motion. Obviously, especially for really beginners, we can combine scaling the range of motion with scaling the reps. So if you're a brand new beginner, you just started doing CrossFit, or this is your first time in a CrossFit gym, then maybe do jumping pull-ups. You could do push-ups to a plate, and you could do that in the half Murph rep scheme. Voila, you've scaled Murph appropriately. You're doing less reps, which is good, and because of your ability level, you've scaled down the range of motion. You've scaled the movements so that they're not quite as difficult, and you're still honoring the workout as it's written, just with slight modifications, so you can get in there, get a great workout, get the same stimulus that I would get at doing a full Murph, but to your ability levels. Okay, so that's one great way to do it. There's a lot of creative ways, and pretty much any gym in the country, if you say, hey, how should I scale down my pull-ups? How should I scale my squats? How should I scale my push-ups? They're going to give you some creative solutions. I just would recommend trying to make them look like the real thing. Like one common thing, let me show you some knee push-ups. I don't really like knee push-ups, even though it is a good scale, like it's a lot easier. But a lot of people with knee push-ups, they wind up like overextending their back, or they like keep their butt really high in the air. That's why I'd rather see people do shorter push-ups to a plate or to a mat. So we're going this far, hitting our chest to the target, and then coming back up. I think that's a better modification for something like push-ups, okay? And like I said, with the pull-ups, I think jumping pull-ups are probably the easiest solution. Ring rows are another great one. The bands are a little difficult to get in and out of. It's just awkward getting in and out of that thing a bunch. And then also, we should talk about, you can do Murph. Another way to scale that ROM or scale the movement is to do Murph unvested, right? This is a very common thing is people will do the full Murph, but they just don't wear a weight vest. It's a great way to scale this workout because an added 20-pound vest or 14-pound vest is really hard to do everything. So that's another great way. You can combine all these things. You can do an unvested half Murph with a partner and do jumping pull-ups instead. That's a great combination of scaling the ROM, scaling the reps, and doing it with a partner to share the load, okay? So with that in mind, let's say you're someone who's trying to get a really good Murph score. You're trying to get through those partitioned reps in the middle as quickly as possible. Here are a few different options. Earlier today, I talked about Cindy. So you would do 20 rounds of Cindy. So you do 20 rounds, 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. Okay, that's a great rep scheme. However, having done that one a couple times myself, I don't know what it is about us CrossFitters. Maybe we just don't bench press enough. But for me, these push-ups slow me down so much. They're so difficult, especially with that weight vest. So what we came up with, and what a lot of people do, is they do something that we call smart sets. We do something that we call smart sets. So smart sets is where we're doing kind of a Cindy variation. We're doing 20 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 5 push-ups, 15 squats, 5 push-ups. What that does is it splits those 10 push-ups up. So you're doing 5 here, 5 there. And ultimately, your goal when you're modifying your rep scheme here is to allow you to keep moving. Let me actually write 20 rounds. I know my handwriting's terrible, 20 rounds. So these are great 20 rounders. The key that you need to be thinking about, if you're trying to get a good Murph score, yeah, you have the runs. We'll talk about those in a second. But your goal should be not to slow down at any point on these movements. So if you are doing the Cindy version, but you're having to break in the middle of your push-ups and you're just sitting there not accumulating reps for like 5, 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds resting, you're killing your score. The goal here is to modify your rep scheme so that you're always accumulating work. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's go over to and then I know there's a question that popped up. Let's go over to here and I'll show you. If let's say you're doing Cindy and you get done your pull-ups and then you come do your push-ups, all right, and then you have to sit here and shake it out and then finish, that's wasted time. If at any point you need to break, or if at any point you're maybe like doing your pull-ups and then for whatever reason your push-ups are all the way on the other side of the gym, all that transition time really, really adds up. So your goal ideally should be to make it look like this. I go from pull-up to push-up to air squat, right? See how there's no transition time between those. You want to stay in a really tight zone so that you're not wasting time moving in between movements and you're always accumulating reps. Which leads me to, I think, one of the better versions. I really like smart sets. I think that's how I've got my fastest Murph score ever, back when I didn't do it unpartitioned. But another one that works really, really well for people is the Fast 50. So the Fast 50 is 50 rounds, literally 50 rounds. Hard to keep track of, so make sure you have like a whiteboard that you're marking it. I would literally like write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then every time I complete a round, maybe scratch it off, or I don't know, find some way to keep track of all of your rounds. Or you could like literally do a tally 50 times, and just each time you're done, you just, don't do that, that wiped out 2, but each time you're done, you just wipe out 1, so you can keep track of when you get finished. But 50 rounds of 2 pull-ups, 4 push-ups, 6 air squats. These are bite-sized rep schemes so that you never have to take a break. And if you do this, I would, again, this is a ton of transitions. You're transitioning a lot of times. You're transitioning at least 150 times, because I'm multiplying that by three movements. You're transitioning so many times that you want to try to keep all those movements really tight. So wherever your pull-up bar is, that's where you also need to be doing your push-ups. Just maybe a step or 2 away from that, and then immediately where you do your push-ups, you're transitioning to squats at the same location. If you can do that, you can really fly through this workout doing the Fast 50 method. Okay, so these are just 3 of many, many examples. You could break it into 5 rounds total, splitting this work up. I've seen some people, and this is a creative solution, I haven't really messed with it myself. I've seen some people that like, they do the first however many rounds, they front load all of the air squats. So maybe it's like you're doing Cindy, but instead like you're doing like 25 air squats in the beginning, and then at some point in the workout, towards the end, it switches to only 5 air squats or even 0 air squats, so that you're strategically resting your legs in front of the second 1 mile run, okay? So there's a lot of creative ways that you can do that. But again, some people nuke it, is what it's called in the military. Some people try to overthink the strategy for Murph, when really the goal is to get in there, grind, and get out, and have a good time, and not hurt yourself. So with that, Travis, there was a question. What is it?
This is from Arlie, any dietary recommendations for the day before, for example, more carbohydrates?
Yeah, good question. So if we were running, let's say, a marathon, like a 4 or 5 hour thing, it would probably matter. But realistically, this is an hour, maybe in the worst case scenario, if you didn't scale properly, an hour and a half. And there really isn't any carb loading considerations. You don't really need to change your diet too much. If anything, I would just suggest, like, all right, like for me, I'll just speak from my experience. Like when I go to do Murph, let's say it's at 11 a.m. on Monday, because I don't want to wake up early. Let's say it's 11 a.m. on Monday. I'll probably have 2 oatmeal packets instead of 1. You know, like that's about it. There's not, this isn't a big enough workout to warrant a complete dietary change. It's just one longer effort. I would encourage you, if you're used to working out completely fasted, chances are you're not getting this, like let's say you work out completely fasted at 5 a.m., but now you're doing this workout at 11 a.m. with the rest of your crew at the gym. You probably should eat something. You shouldn't hit this workout fasted, but if you are used to working out fasted and you do this workout at 5 a.m., then by all means, you could probably hit it fasted and be totally fine. You just have to do what your body is used to, but I would not suggest changing a lot. If you normally work out at 11, and you normally eat a little bit of food before this workout, I wouldn't say have your biggest breakfast of all time loaded with pasta and carbohydrates and extra fruit. All that could maybe do is upset your tummy, and that's not going to be good in the middle of the workout. So no, not too many dietary changes at all. I'd say stick to your normal schedule. Just maybe add in a little bit of extra simple carbs. That could be like eat a packet of gummy bears or something like that, like at like 45 minutes or 30 minutes before the workout. That might give you a little bit of extra carbs. That's about all I'm going to do. Okay, so hope that helped. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I can't really answer these questions professionally, but that's what I'm going to do from my experience. I think a lot of people make the mistake of doing too many changes, and then it actually hurts them rather than helps them. And then hugely important. This is more important than your nutrition, hydration. This is a workout that I would make sure you're extra hydrated. Make sure you're drinking, a big Nalgene bottle with electrolytes before this workout, and force yourself to drink a little bit of extra water, because dehydration is a major concern, especially now that, especially in the northern hemisphere, the weather's kind of getting pretty warm. It's going to be sweaty. This workout is oftentimes done in the middle of the day in the peak heat of the day. This extra hydration is extremely important to make sure you're not cramping. And I forget what the statistic is, but it's like 1% dehydration is up to 10% performance loss. So if you're really dehydrated going into this event, you are really in for a bad time. So I would say hydrate extra. That's more important of carbing extra. Sweet. All right, what else we got?
This is from Geraldo. Any recommendations for prior day training?
Most people are hitting this on Monday, a lot of people. So for a lot of people, rest day is on a Sunday. Again, it all depends on your ability level, right? If you're a really good athlete, you could go train hard and then hit Murph the next day. I could probably do that. I'm not going to. Like, I will be resting, probably fishing all day on Sunday, and then on Monday, I will do Murph. So resting the day before Murph is probably going to help you get a better Murph score. If you do need to train the day or two prior to Murph, probably don't do a bunch of pull-ups. Don't do a bunch of running. You could do, overhead pressing. You could do, I don't know, something else, maybe something with your core, but just maybe don't do the movements that are going to be in Murph. But I think for most people, it's probably a good idea to have a rest day before Murph, because Murph is a lot of volume, especially if you do the whole thing. Good questions. Any more questions? If not, I'll keep rolling.
A comment from Chris. He said, with kind of about like strategy, kind of what you're talking about, but might do the first half vested and then deload for the second half.
Yeah, that's like I said, this is a workout that there's no right or wrong way to do it. I say the only wrong way to do it is to use your ego and hurt yourself. That's the wrong way to do it. That doesn't honor anyone. That just strokes your own ego and then you get hurt and get Rhabdo. So I think it's a great idea. You could do the full Murph and you do the first half of it vested, and then midway through the workout, you take the vest off and you finish it without the vest. It's a great way to scale. Love it. Good idea.
Just one more new one. I think this is somebody that just joined. Todd is asking diet day before.
Yeah, so we just talked about that, Todd. Basically, not really any dietary changes, but you can go watch the recording of this video. It's basically right before you hopped on the call. I talked a lot about it. The key is hydration. So think about hydration more than you worry about your diet before this workout. Sweet. So as we've talked about scaling, remember as a review, scaling down the reps and keeping the actual movements the same is a great option. scaling the range of motion, which means changing and modifying the movement, is also a great option. So you could do a full Murph with jumping pull-ups and scaled push-ups, right? And scaled squats, that's all fine too. So you can scale the reps, you can scale the ROM, or you can do a combination of the both. You can do a half Murph with ring rows instead of the pull-ups. That would be a combination of scaling reps and ROM. And then rep schemes for full Murphs, these are the suggested ones. Cindy's probably the simplest and easiest to remember. The smart sets is a good one. Sometimes I forget whether I've done the first set or the second set of push-ups, and I get confused. But this is another good one to help break up the push-ups and keep you moving. And then this one's really fast, lots of transitions, so mind your transitions. 50 rounds of 2 pull-ups, 4 push-ups, 6 squats. Super fast. It's kind of weird to me doing smaller sets like that, but it does work really well for people. So we've talked about scaling. Let's talk about, we talked about strategy obviously a little bit, but when it comes to pacing, this workout, like every workout, especially in the open, everyone comes out way too hot and then they get their butt kicked. So I want you to just do that first mile run at like 80% effort, maybe 85% effort. Do not try to keep up with the leaders of the pack on the first mile run, because you cannot win this workout. Win is very relative. We're not trying to win anything here. But you can win this workout on the first mile run, but you sure as heck can lose it. I've seen so many people come out of the gate, they run a 7-minute, 6-minute vested mile run, and then they get their butts kicked in the second half of this workout. So come out slow and then try to maintain that slow, steady pace. And then if you're feeling good towards the end of those sets and towards the end of those reps, that's when you start to ramp up your pace a little bit. And then the last mile, give it your all, right? That last mile for a lot of people takes a very long time. So that's when you want to have a little bit of energy and you want to put it all in that mile. All right, we got a new comment. What is it?
I think this is a good one. So from Rhonda, I've seen conflicting information regarding the RX weight for a female. Is it officially 20 pounds or 14 pounds?
I actually don't remember. Again, the way they originally wrote the workout was if you have body armor, wear it. That's it. So what does that mean? What is body armor? I think, and you just need to go Google this. Go CrossFit Games Murph. When you Google CrossFit Games Murph, I'm sure somewhere on the internet they posted what the standard was for men and women. I think women is a 14-pound vest and men is a 20-pound vest. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't concern myself with that too much. So that's a good question. I would just Google it, but technically the RX version is if you have body armor, wear it. So what does that even mean? I would say you're totally safe doing 20 for guys, 14 for women, but it'd be one to check out. If the CrossFit Games said 20-pound vest for everyone, then there you go. There's the answer. Good questions, though. Good questions. I'm sorry I don't know the answer to that. So we've talked about scaling options. We've talked about the strategy that comes with the scaling. We talked about pacing. Start slower than you want and ramp up at the end. Don't come out fast because you'll get crushed. And then I also did talk about transitions. Let's talk about it one more time. It truly matters. Come over here to the whiteboard or the pull-up bar. Just something as simple as this will cost you maybe upwards of 5 to 10 minutes in the workout. Let's say you finish your pull-up, and rather than doing your push-ups here, you have to share your bar and you got to walk over to here, and then I come down and do my push-up. Just that little transition of time can cost 5+ minutes in this workout. So whatever you do, obviously a lot of people need to share pull-up bars, but whatever you do, get done, get over to your push-ups, and get down, okay? Get there quickly, because if the slower you go on the transitions, that's time where you're not accumulating reps, and it's going to waste a lot of time, okay? And then when you do your push-ups, get up, get squatting, right? Get right into it. Any sort of transition time really eats up a lot for a lot of people in this workout. The best scores are always done by people who are always moving. Like at any point in the workout, if you're like, am I accumulating a rep right now? If the answer is no, you probably need to have faster transitions, okay? So let's talk about the gear that I use for this workout. Pretty simple. I highly recommend we're going to say grips. So I'm going to highly, highly recommend grips because hand care with all these weighted pull-ups is a significant issue. A lot of people will tear doing Murph because they have these big gnarly calluses that they haven't taken care of, which is not good. We don't want that. So first, I wear grips. I have 2 grips that I really, really like. These are the RX Smart Gear Alec Smith grips. They're fantastic. Let me put one on here. This is the left. I'll use the right. So these are really good ones. And then the other ones, which I don't have here because my girlfriend stole them from me, are the Element 26 Isocomp. They are amazing as well. But when you put on the grip, the goal of this grip here is you don't have to get the crazy long ones that everyone's getting hurt with. The goal is the grip should come to like mid-finger. And then my goal is I throw this over the pull-up bar like here. And then as I start falling on the bar, it basically locks into the pull-up bar. And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on my wrist rather than my hand. So most of the pressure, most of the weight of my body will actually go into this padded wristband rather than having, let's say if I wasn't wearing grips, all of my weight would be on my hands, which thus tears up my calluses. So let me show you here on the pull-up bar. When I'm jumping up to the pull-up bar, I'm not just jumping up with my fingers, okay? I like to jump up and hit it right here at the base of my hand. I pinch, and then you can hear it like creaking on the pull-up bar. That gives me a really, really good grip. And I can loosen it if I want to wrap my thumbs. But like that, all of that pressure is now in my wrist, and I'm never going to tear, okay? So this is how you do it. It's all about the pressure on the bar to make it pull up. So these Alec Smith grips are fantastic. The E26 Isocomp grips have like a rubberized thing that make it sticky, and it feels like cheating, but they're really, really good too. If you get the Alec Smith ones, chalk, lots of chalk, and then they work perfect. It's like it sticks to the bar. And then the Isocomp ones are good with or without chalk because they have like the rubberized coating. If you do get discounts, if you want any of them, you go to E26, just Google E26 Fitness, you'll find it. WODprep 10 will get you 10% or $10 off. I don't know. You'll get some percentage off of the Isocomp grips, and then RX Smart Gear's 24 WODprep. You'll get a discount on the Alec Smith grips if you want to go with those and anything else from their websites. So those are definitely, I'd say grips are the #1 most important thing. Ooh, let me grab something out of my workout bag real quick. So, darn it, I forgot what our discount code is. Ooh, what is the discount code? I'll try to update it in the description, but if you have calluses in your hand, you need to get one of these, Sandbar Callus Care. Basically, it's a callus file. It's sandpaper, and when I grab it, it's just like me grabbing a pull-up bar. So I grab the pull-up bar, and when I do that, especially with the bare hands, you have all these hot spots from calluses that are too big. And what you do is you grab this, like you would grab a pull-up bar, you rotate it 5 in one direction, rotate it 5 in another direction, and then what it's done is it's shaved off a lot of those hot spots, and then I take it and I just file it down more. And you do that a couple times, and your hands will be good to go because you've taken away all those hot spots. So if you don't wear grips, maybe I used to hate grips when I did pull-ups. This is a great way to make sure that you don't have calluses that are just like ready to rip and tear off. This works for weightlifting, all the gymnastic stuff. This is always in my gym bag. It's just a Sandbar. Just go to, what is it? SandbarCallusCare.com, and I think there's a discount code of some sort. I think if you use WODprep, maybe just do WODprep all caps, that should give you a discount code. If not, then do WODprep 10, but I'm pretty sure it's just WODprep, and that gives you a discount code on these things. They're amazing. What's up? Another comment?
Does anyone's gym consider RX to be unpartitioned?
Yes, lots of gyms do, and I hate it with a passion. Because again, a lot of gyms think that because the CrossFit Games programmed unpartitioned Murph, and it's written, like when you see this work here, you're like, oh look, it's written like that. That must mean that's RX'd. It's not written 1 mile run, 20 rounds of Cindy, 1 mile run. It's written like this, so this must be RX. But if you literally look up the first time Murph was ever written back in the early 2000s, then you'll notice that it says this Partition reps as needed. If you have a vest, wear it. That's Murph. So partitioning the reps, as long as you wear a vest, that is considered RX still. But of course, we've come in and we've changed it and bastardized it. And because the CrossFit Games programmed an unpartitioned Murph, now a lot of people consider that the RX. Honestly, if it were me, if I was a gym owner, I would call unpartitioned vested Murph an RX plus version of Murph. And then an RX Murph is a Murph where you partition the reps in the middle as needed. That's my opinion. But yes, there are gyms all over the world that are like, if you partition the reps, it's considered scaled, which is wrong, fundamentally.
Another comment from Damon Bennett. I believe he might be a coach. The question is, with the pull-ups, there are a few athletes that have bad technique in kipping and butterfly pull-ups. Do you recommend strict pull-ups?
Yeah, okay, so if one of your athletes has like bad technique and they're gonna hurt themselves, the way that I would approach that is, one, make sure they're not wearing a weight vest, because adding 20 pounds of weight to already poor movement is not necessarily probably gonna help the shoulders, and it's not gonna feel very good. But telling someone to do strict pull-ups in this workout, very much, like if you do Murph strict, that's RX plus plus. Strict pull-ups make this so much harder, okay? So if you were programming strict for an athlete, which I think is okay if they have bad movement and you think they're gonna hurt themselves, I think it's okay, but you'd need to scale down, oh, it's on the other side. You need to scale down the reps. I wouldn't suggest anyone say, oh yeah, do Murph, and you need to do 100 pull-ups strict. That's gonna be pretty brutal, and that makes it even harder. So that's my answer for you. But if I saw someone with poor movement, but they do that poor movement all the time, I would be like, hey, your butterfly pull-ups are looking a little sketchy. I don't know if we should add a 20-pound weight vest. How about you don't wear a vest? Maybe if they're doing it unpartitioned, you say don't wear a vest during the pull-ups, or don't wear a vest in the whole workout. Or if you're trying to do butterfly, I want you to go to normal kipping, because I think that's a little bit of a safer movement pattern. Or if their kipping pattern is really bad, tell them to go strict, but take off the weight vest or reduce the reps. That's how I'd approach it.
A question from Todd Page. If partitioning, how long should your rest time be between movements or rounds?
None. That's the goal. Like when you're partitioning, let's go look at this one more time. So the goal of partitioning is to allow yourself to not have to rest. That's the whole reason we partition. If I could do an unbroken Murph without any rest, that would be the fastest way to do it. If I did 100 pull-ups and then 200 push-ups, but I can't do that. So we partition so that we can move through the movements more quickly and efficiently. So partitioning allows us to move through it more efficiently and quickly. But if, let's say I do Cindy, the Cindy version, I know, having done it several times, by like the 10th or 12th round and beyond, I can't do those 10 push-ups unbroken every time. I get too tired and too blown up. So that would mean that this is a bad one for me. So that's why I came up with smart sets. I do 5 pull-ups, 5 push-ups, 15 squats, 5 more push-ups. Maybe I'll do the first 10 rounds of Cindy, and then the second 10 rounds I do smart sets once the push-ups start getting hard. That is a great way to make it so that I do not need to rest and I do not need to take breaks. Obviously, this is your workout. If you want to take a 1-minute rest between each round, you can. It's just going to take a long time. But the goal of partitioning is to not rest at all. And that's where I think the Fast 50 really shines, is because if I do 2 pull-ups, 4 push-ups, 6 squats, I can do that all day long, and the rest is built into the transition time. I'm not actually thinking about, oh, I'm going to rest 10 seconds here. It's just built in, and I can always keep moving. So that's why this is a good one to always stay moving. Hope that helps.
This is from Debbie. She's saying this is her 4th Murph. She's 62.
Nice.
Paced herself, usually finish way under 1 hour. Her plan is 5 push-ups, 5 pull-ups, 5 push-ups, and 15 squats.
There you go. Yeah, that works. That's a version of the smart sets where you're starting with the push-ups. That would confuse me because I always do it in the order that it's written, but yeah, that would work great.
Thoughts on varying push-up width. Last year I did 5 with regular hand position and 5 with a wider position, and it did seem to help a lot.
Yeah. So let me show Travis back up, and I'll show what they're talking about. It's a great option. So let's say if I'm doing a push-up, normally my hands are going to be underneath my shoulders, maybe slightly outside, and I'm going down chest to deck, fully locked out, making sure I'm not sagging my butt or my butt's high in the air, okay? So that's a great option. However, just like with the bench press, if I'm always in one position, I'm going to fatigue certain muscles very heavily. But what you can do, as long as you're keeping the movement standard, I can widen my hands out and do wide push-ups, which reduces the range of motion, and now it's targeting a different muscle group. So I think that's a great idea. You can do it. You can do narrow ones, and then maybe the next set you're doing slightly wider ones, and the next set you're doing really wide ones. You'll probably find one that's really feeling good that day, maybe want to stick with that. But if you start to get really tired, you can definitely play around with your width of your push-up stance. It's a great tip. I like that tip. Any more questions? Are there any more? Okay, cool. So we're going to wrap this up soon. Last but not least, gear that I use, I forgot to talk about. Like, everybody asks what vest I have. I just happen to have a fringe sport vest. There's a lot of really good ones. Mountain Ops has a good vest. I'm sure Rogue has one. Any vest will do. The thing that I'm looking for in a vest is like that it has padding on the shoulders, right? Padding on the shoulders, and just basically like it needs to have a little breathability and padding. If you put on the vest, maybe with your shirt off, is a good test. I wouldn't suggest necessarily doing it with a shirt off because that seems like it would hurt. But if you put on your vest and without doing anything, you're like, ooh, this is poking me and this seems scratchy, then by the end of the workout, you will be tattered. You will be scratched. You'll be bruised. You'll have little, rashes and stuff like that. But if you put on the vest and you're like, this feels pretty good, and you jump around with it and it's not like cutting into you anywhere, that's a good vest. It's still gonna rub. You might have some nipple chafing. You're gonna get chafed moving around. Make sure your vest is tight enough. What I like to do is during the run, I kind of tighten it up a little bit so that it's not like jumping around a lot. And then when I come back in and start working through the sets, I loosen it up a little bit so I can breathe. I just loosen it a little bit because it doesn't really matter if it's moving too much, especially on the push-ups and the air squats. On the pull-ups, it can get a little annoying if it's smacking you. But loosen up just a little bit. That allows you to breathe, and then tighten it back up for the run. That's what I normally do.
So for gear, what about shoes? Runners, cross-training shoes, what's your shoe suggestion?
Yeah, so when it comes to shoes in this workout, I'd say the most important aspect is the run. So I would wear whatever shoes you feel comfortable running in. The only thing that it might hurt you with is the air squats, but the air squats are relatively light and they're straightforward. And if you have a slightly squishier shoe, it doesn't really matter. So I would go with more running shoes, because running, like if I wore, like I have a couple different pairs of like true like CrossFit trainers, and they're not really comfortable to run in, especially longer distances and especially with weight. So if I had running shoes I liked, I would prioritize running shoes over shoes that might feel a little bit better for the air squat. Good question though.
A new question from Matilda. Would you go with singles in pull-ups if you're an intermediate athlete that does not do butterflies? And how would you split the push-ups? No weight vest for me.
Yeah, so for someone like you, singles is a tough one. So the first thing I might say is like, hey, if you do need to resort to singles, that's a lot of, 100 is a lot. So it might be worth scaling down and doing a half Murph and still doing singles. But if you want to do like RX single reps, you could do something like the Fast 50 where you do 2 pull-up singles and then push-up squats. 2 pull-up singles, push-up squats. That might be a good one, and that's going to keep your pull-up pace high. If you did something that had 5 pull-ups in it, you might slow down a lot. So you do 2 fast singles, 4, 6, 2 fast singles, 4, 6. I think this would probably be a good rep scheme to keep you moving. But you have to do 50 rounds, so make those transitions quick. And then also come over here and watch me. When it comes to those pull-up singles, and this is like a lot of people are going to be doing this if they don't want to modify do banded pull-ups or anything like that. Pull-up singles, it's really important. Like, let's say you jump up, I do a little kip, get above it. I don't want you to control yourself back down. That's like the kiss of death. You're doing twice as much work. A good single should look like this. And I drop. So I want that pull bar to be just above or right at my maximum standing reach so that the drop isn't too far. But literally, as soon as that chin crosses the plane of the bar, I let go. Because I don't want you going up and then lowering yourself down. That's going to fatigue you too much. So fast singles are just this. Boom. Boom. Real fast. As soon as I get that chin above the bar, I drop and relax. Good question. Any more questions? Sweet. And so I've talked about scaling and different versions of the workout. We actually have like a Murph quiz that we put together. If you go to WODprep.com/Murph and go there, I think enter name and email, and then it gives you like a flow chart where basically it quizzes you and it says all these questions, and then it tells you which version of the Murph we suggest that you do based on your timing, based on your ability levels. So go check that out. Just go to WODprep.com/Murph. Enter your name and email, and then we will send you that Murph quiz. Basically, it's a flow chart. It's like a PDF where you go through it, and it'll help you pick out which one of the many different versions of Murph we suggest that you do. Okay, so to wrap this thing up, we've talked about it all. Okay, if you're tuning in late, go back and watch the recording. We've talked about scaling. We've talked about pacing. We've talked about strategy. Transitions are key. The gear that I use, and the last thing that I want to talk about is warning. Do not be one of the probably thousands of athletes this year that will get rhabdo from Murph. People will come in, they will be mentally prepared to attack this workout, but not physically prepared. And all the pressures and the big crowds and everybody cheering each other on, they're going to go as hard as they possibly can, and then they might even wind up in the hospital. Okay, it happens in all sports, not just CrossFit. It happens in all of them. But Murph is an especially tough workout. And with the pull-ups, with people jumping and maybe doing negatives and like jumping pull-ups, it's really easy to blow up your arms really, really bad. Or doing slow air squats and stuff like that. Like this workout has rhabdo written all over it. So ways to avoid rhabdo: leave your ego at the door. Scale Murph appropriately. If it's taking you longer than an hour, you have not scaled appropriately. I will say that all day long. If it's taking you over an hour, you probably need to scale it down. If you haven't practiced weighted running, pull-ups, if you haven't practiced weighted anything, you probably shouldn't do it with a weight vest. Like, be willing to scale down. Be willing to scale your reps, your range of motion, or hit this workout with a partner. That will allow you to experience Murph, honor the fallen, and not get rhabdomyolysis. And with that, make sure, regardless of whether you crush it or don't crush it, or you're fit or not fit, hydration. You need to be hydrating before, during, and after this workout. That means water with electrolytes. Drink lots of water with electrolytes. Don't be one of the athletes that comes in dehydrated, hits this workout, and then crushes a bunch of beers afterwards. That is literally a recipe for rhabdomyolysis and kidney failure. I'm not a doctor, but I think a lot of doctors would agree with those statements. Hydrate with water and electrolytes before, during, and after the workout, and then maybe enjoy a few cold beverages after you properly rehydrated yourself. Don't allow yourself to get rhabdo because you're dumb. Don't do that.
What's a good time cap for each partition?
Each partition. I don't know that. I really don't. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I think it's perfectly fine to scale mid-workout. So here's an example. And what I've seen some gyms do is, let's say they do a heat of Murph. They will call out and be like, 30 minutes. You are 30 minutes in. If you're not at least halfway done this workout and halfway done your reps and sets, then scale down to your next option. Because obviously the second half of the workout is going to take longer than the first half. So if you're not already halfway done at 30 minutes, scale. That's how I'd measure it. I wouldn't necessarily look at the clock after every round of the partition or that's too much math for me. If you want to do it, you can. But if you are not done at least half of the workout at 30 minutes, definitely scale down the second half. That's what I would say. Cool. Any more questions? If not, we're going to wrap this up. So I appreciate everybody for being here. If you have any questions, maybe after this recording is done, ask them in the comments. I will make sure that I'm in there. Remember, if you want to get the Murph quiz, go to WODprep.com/Murph. Go there, enter your name and email. I'll send you the free Murph quiz. If you have any follow-up questions, ask them in the comments below. And I hope that this video helped you out. We covered a lot of stuff here, and I hope you learned something. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, leave your ego at the door. You are not this hero in the workout. Murph is. Go have a good time. Have fun with your friends. Honor the fallen. And thanks for participating in Memorial Day, Murph.